So, this is episode 16 of season 3, Welcome to the Tombs, which is the season finale. So, this is a strange episode, I think. It's not terrible, but it has a huge amount of wasted potential. So, let's see. So, it begins with the people of Woodbury. They're going to go attack the prison finally. Oh no, did it open with Rick? It opened with Rick sending some of the people, like the more vulnerable people, like Carl and Herschel.
And Judith and
was
Beth.
there anyone at Beth? Okay.
Beth, yeah.
Yeah, off
Sending
into
them to
the
woods.
woods.
And Carl's mad about
right,
it.
he's really pissed off and all hormonal about it.
Yeah, and he's like blaming Rick for not killing the governor when they were at the feed store.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's being really hormonal and just blaming Rick and like mad and just stomping around and throwing his stuff in the car. Because hormones. He's probably. I mean, okay. So when the show started,
it doesn't make a lot of sense, but he's like somehow going through puberty.
Well, and this
like,
actor, the actor is so much older than the character at this point. Like,
it's a bit far fetched.
Yeah, because this is like 3 years since the show started. So like just estimating, because Carl's supposed to be about 12,
right?
And if he was 12 when he started, the actor is now 15, but Carl's only supposed to be like 13 now.
Right.
It's only supposed to be like 1 year in Walking Dead time. So he's rapidly aging while Carl is not.
That's an issue throughout the show with Carl. He's getting. I mean, yeah. By the time he dies, I think he's like the character is supposed to be quite a bit younger than the actor is.
Yeah,
and
the
it's
character's probably supposed to be about 15, and the actor's
like 18-ish.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a bit. Because it's a bit odd because often I feel like the character acts like the actor's age more, like
the character's age.
Yeah, and I mean, like, sure, he's growing up fast, but that should be psychological, not physiological.
Right.
Like, he shouldn't be going. Like, there's really no reason why he's like rapidly aging physically. Why he's developing like that.
It's a hard world, but like
Rick's like, I found some testosterone and I've been pumping Carl up. He needs it, Laurie. Oh no, Laurie's dead at this point. But he needs it, Herschel. Yeah.
So then it shows the governor getting people ready to go fight.
Ready, and Tyrese is he's being such a flip-floppy. He just can't commit.
Pansy, like him and Sasha, but like I think Tyrese is really leading it.
Yeah.
And because like when they got to Woodbury, they were like, "We'll do whatever you need. We'll fight whatever fight you have.
We'll help defend the town.
Like we'll earn our way." And now he's like, "This isn't our fight. We can't go."
But he really made it seem like when they first arrived, like he was okay with fighting Rick's group. You know what I mean? Like, because he says, "Oh, they've got women and children. It's not right to go attack them." But he
knew they had women and children before.
Something? Yeah, exactly. Like, why didn't he say something before this? He's kind of at several points throughout the show, he's very much a pansy, and it usually blows up in his own face, or someone else's. So then the governor looks at him really intently, and Tyrese is crapping himself.
Yeah.
And Sasha's crapping Tyrese's pants also somehow. And then the governor just goes over and gets a rifle and hands it to him. Oh, because Tyrese said we're willing to stay here and defend the town, and then when you come back, if you want us gone, that's fine. And so then the governor hands him a rifle and says thank you, and then leaves. Which I think it's funny that, like, up until he goes insane, the governor is pretty reasonable with the people of Woodbury.
He really
for the most part, I don't know if that was intentional, from a creative point of view. Because
at least in the Governor series, like, he seems like he's always been kind of insane.
Right. He's much more. Yeah, he's
much more manic.
They were. Okay, I think they were making him more. They're trying to make him more sympathetic
more
on the TV show. But in some ways it doesn't make a lot of sense because, like, why it doesn't, like, why do some of, I mean, because it makes sense that some of the characters hate him so much, and it makes sense in some ways that he's portrayed as such a villain, but in other ways it doesn't.
Well, like, and as we've talked about before, like, they really downplayed why Michonne hated him so much. Like, why him and Michonne hated each other.
And Rick, I think, too.
Yeah,
I mean, but Michonne, yeah, definitely. Oh, no, yeah, because, like, they really should have done something.
And Glenn.
Yeah, that's right. Also, God, like, all of them, yeah.
They, like, really downplayed it.
Because they, okay, like, yes, obviously they couldn't do, like, obviously, because it's TV... You know, if it was HBO, they could have done.
They
like
would
they could have done the hypersexual,
yeah, they would have
hyper
done all
violent.
of his
raping. Yeah. But okay, they needed to, in my opinion, they needed to do something more than what they did,
right?
In order to like get this whole like why Rick's group hates him so much, why he, I mean, like, I guess he just because yeah, it makes. It makes some sense because Michonne killed Penny, so like why he would hate them, but
right.
Okay, they should have done something where either Michonne or Maggie or Glenn or Rick, he needed to like do something really brutal to one of them.
Yeah.
Because he didn't do anything brutal to any of them except for beating up Glenn. Which, I'm sorry, is not remotely enough to justify.
It wasn't even the governor that did it.
Right,
it was
Merle, yeah. Well, I mean, under his orders.
Right,
but yeah, no,
right.
I know what you mean, yeah.
So, yeah, they, like, portrayed the governor in a much better light than the governor series in the comic book portrays him.
Yeah.
And so, the governor's army... Right? They
yes.
like roll up to the prison
and
they
smash their way in and they blow up the guard towers with grenades and they shoot up the yard and kill the walkers and like shoot up the fence, or not the fences, they shoot up the walls and everything with their machine guns.
And none of Rick's group is in sight.
Right. And there's no one there. And so then they go into the prison, which is the only way that he could have lost. Because there's just countless,
so much more gunpowder.
There's just, okay.
They have so many more people.
He didn't even need to bring the militia to the prison in the first place. He could have just shot at them every single time they tried to step foot outside of the prison. Mm-hmm. And eventually that would have, you know what I mean? Like, he could have just put men in the woods and just, played out a protracted game of attrition and killed them off one by one until they decided to leave.
Right.
They could have smoked them out by setting fire to parts of the prison and fanning the flames in, and they could have suffocated them or driven them out or burned them pretty easily. They could have starved them out. They could have fashioned some kind of poison, like chlorine gas, and like fired it in there. Milton could have, well, I guess he wouldn't be willing to, but they could have made lots of improvised weapons to drive them out. Mm-hmm. Anything other than going in there stupidly for no reason.
Right.
Yeah, anyway, so then they go in there. And they find, like, Herschel's Bible. Like, they go into the cell block, and they find Herschel's Bible, and it has some Bible verse underlined, something about, and he shall lead the sheep into the den of the Minotaur, and they shall be freed, or something, something along those lines. Mm-hmm. And then...
They're going through the corridors.
Right.
And alarms go off, and there's walkers everywhere, and everyone in their militia starts panicking and freaking out, and the governor just keeps yelling over and over, get down? Is that what... No, what is he yelling? Oh, crap, I don't remember.
That's alright. But yeah,
he keeps yelling it over and over and over, and it's like, they're not going to hear you. Like, the alarms are going off, they're all screaming, I think there's gunfire also.
Oh yeah, well, they're being killed by...
Right.
Rick and Michonne.
Is it that's who's in the prison? Okay.
At that point,
and so,
I think,
one, they would all be deaf. like,
right,
because of the gunfire and the alarms. Like, that's just too many decibels at one time, even if it's like temporary deafness. But like, he just keeps yelling at them, and like, that's not gonna do anything. That's just dumb. That's a pet peeve of mine.
Right.
And so they're running out of the prison, right, to try to get away from that.
Yeah. And then Glenn and Maggie start shooting at them from the walkways and the walls. And so then they're running away, and then they get back to their vehicles, and Martinez and Schumpert try to shoot at Glenn and Maggie with their .50 calibers, but of course, conveniently, they jam at that exact moment, because otherwise Glenn and Maggie would be dead very quickly.
It's just very convenient.
Yeah. And so then they have to retreat, and everybody just takes off, and then, let's see, Glenn and Maggie, and Rick, and Michonne, and... was Daryl with them? He must have been.
He must have been.
Yeah, so then they're like, oh, okay, we have to go finish it. We have to go pursue them. And that's really stupid because that would just get them killed. I mean...
Right.
They were only able to succeed in this situation because of the environment. They weren't...
Right.
Like, they still don't have numerical superiority, and they'd still be outgunned. It's just dumb. But of course, Rick isn't very smart, and so he would have been funny if he just, like, got them all killed right then after winning a victory.
I wonder if part of the reason Rick is like, we have to go after them is because Carl was like, you didn't do it, Dad. You didn't kill them.
Maybe.
Like,
that makes him dumb also.
Well, I mean,
It might be, yeah. And then Carl...
While this is happening, someone from Woodbury,
just ran
runs into the woods.
Yeah, like what that? Like, why did you? Okay, why did you run into the woods? Like, how did you end up at this exact spot? Like that's pretty convenient.
And he stumbles.
He stumbles on Carl and Herschel and Judith and Beth. And he's like, I surrender.
Yeah, he's putting his gun down. He's surrendering.
And Carl's like, not today, bitch. And just shoots him in the face. And Herschel's like, oh my god.
The testosterone
shots that Rick's been giving you have made you a killer, Carl.
This starts a huge thing with, like, Herschel being concerned about Carl. Yeah.
Herschel's so whiny.
Yes, he is. So the militia is retreating.
Right, and then... The governor drives out, like, he's shouting at them, trying to get them to stop from his truck, and then he pulls out in front of them and stops the convoy, and then he's like, oh my god, you people suck. We have to dig in, and, presumably he's referring to at Woodbury, not right at this, in the road.
Right.
But, and they're all like, oh no, we don't care, wah, 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 like, even though, like...
They were all prepared for this.
Right.
Like,
I mean...
They knew what they were going into. Maybe they didn't expect it to be that bad because they thought...
but they're being very cowardly.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, what's his face? The guy whose son was killed. Yeah. Something like that. But yeah, the guy whose son was killed
He was part of Tyrese's group.
Right. He was, he felt cuckolded by Tyrese. And that's part of why he wanted to join the governor. And so then he's like saying like, oh no, we should still fight. Those sons of bitches killed my son, etc., etc. And then, but the governor just gets pissed off by all their whining. Oh, like Karen, like she's
Karen, I really dislike.
Yeah,
Karen.
no, she's annoying. She's a terrible actress. I don't know why they cast this woman, because she's not good.
No, she's not. Like,
yeah, she doesn't seem to emote at all.
No.
Yeah, and so
like earlier we talked about in Woodbury. This was several episodes ago, and like a walker got in, and then like one of the men was bit, and she was like, "Someone help him! He's dying!" Like, just no emotion whatsoever.
No,
just terrible
sucks.
acting.
Yeah. And so then the governor just decides he's had enough of all their stupidity and just guns them all down. And then what's-his-face, the father, is the last one standing in that situation, other than the governor's men, Martinez and Schumpert.
Yes.
Schumpert. And then,
he, like, points his gun at the governor.
Yeah, he's, you know, he, like, points his gun at him, and the governor's just like, oh, you're gonna shoot me? And then he just, you know, the governor just shoots him in the head.
Right.
Yeah. And then he walks over, and he's shooting some presumably corpses in the head, what he thinks are just corpses. And he's about to shoot Karen, but of course, Satan intervenes and saves her life from a rightful death.
He's gonna shoot. There was, like, one that fell on top of her.
Right.
And he was gonna shoot that one.
Debatable, because that would have been a really weird, like, framing. Because then she would have lived either way, but he just happened to run out of bullets.
Okay.
And the show portray. I mean, you're right. There was someone on top of her. He maybe would have just shot both of them. But
that's how I took it. That
yeah.
he was trying to shoot both of them.
Oh right. Well, yeah. But anyway, so then he just runs out of bullets, and he just says whatever. And so then he gets in the truck, and his men join him, and then they drive away. And let's see. And so then, okay, so running parallel with this, the very beginning of the episode, the governor was torturing Milton. Mm-hmm. And basically, he gave him the option to kill Andrea and, like, rededicate himself to Woodbury. But Milton says, oh no, I won't do that. And so then he's like, okay, whatever. And so then he has him in the torture chamber with Andrea chained to the dentist chair.
Yeah.
And so then he's just like, okay. And so then he's just, okay, and then he stabs Milton, and he says, okay, well, now you're going to turn, and now you're going to kill her.
You're going to kill her either way.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And before he stabbed him, Milton brought in a tray of tools.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, like, being all clumsy and, like, dropped it and then picked everything back up, but he left a pair of pliers on the ground near Andrea's feet.
Yeah.
That the governor conveniently didn't see.
Mm-hmm. And so then Milton has been, like, dying. He's been exsanguinating this whole time, like, throughout a lot of the episode. And him and Andrea have been, like, wasting, like, so he's like, there's some pliers by your feet. Get them and free yourself before I turn and eat your face. And so, but they've been, like, wasting a lot of time talking to each other. Yeah, it's like, just like, oh my god.
And, like, so, like, she has to take off her shoe to, like, pick him up with her toes. Mm-hmm. Like, that's fine and dandy. But, like, she'll, like, start doing it, and then they'll start talking, and, like, she
and
stops.
Just get distracted.
She stops doing what she's doing to talk to him. Like, apparently she can't multitask.
Apparently not.
And she also frequently, like, stops to, like, see if he's still breathing.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, just do
right.
it. Just
she wastes, like,
so
at
much
least
time.
10 minutes.
Yes.
I mean, overall, I think it's fair to say that she wastes, like, at least between 5 and 10, being generous. But, like, I think, like, 10 minutes at least, like, based on what we saw.
Right.
Like, and so then eventually Milton dies.
And she does.
And she keeps, like, looking over for, like, you know, and not just, like, glancing, but she'll, like,
look over
just,
and,
like, stare at him
him
for, like, a minute at a time.
Yeah.
Like, just be like, And it's like,
Is he
well,
dead
look,
yet?
like, I get that you want to check, but, I mean, if he resurrects,
you're stuck in this
like,
chair.
Like, it's not going to make a difference. Like, the only way you can do anything about it is by freeing yourself.
Yeah, right.
And so, like, I mean, okay, but, like, what if he just resurrects when you're checking it out? Well, then he's going to come over and eat your face.
And so she does end up getting herself free, like, right as he turns.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so, like, it wasn't enough
like,
time for her to, like, actually kill him or get out or anything like that.
But if she had just wasted a little less time, she would have lived.
Yeah.
Like, she could have freed herself. But she was just dumb and wasted way too much time and died.
And Milton bit her. So she did kill Milton after he turned, but he bit her. And so, okay, going back to the original story, Rick and his group were going after the governor, and they find his, like, convoys, and they find all the dead people and the walkers. And
as they're coming up to one of the transports, they're like, Karen, being the dumb bitch that she is, she jumps up right as Rick's coming up, like, jumps up on the glass and, like, trying to act like a walker.
Yeah.
You know, hoping that somebody will shoot her. So then, like, and then, and then she's like, oh my god, he killed everybody.
He's a monster.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and so then, let's see,
They're like,
then they
you
go
can
to
come
Woodbury.
with us.
Yeah.
And they go to Woodbury to see, like, who is still there. And
I think it's funny because I can't remember if it was before or after they... I think it's after they find the convoy. But they're, like, somebody is like, well, we're gonna have to, like, murder every single person in Woodbury. And Rick's like, sure, right. Uh-huh. Like, and it's just like, okay, like, are you though? I mean, are you
Right.
gonna, like, kill the children and the old people? I mean, and it's just like, okay, this, like, anyway, but yeah, so then they go to Woodbury with Karen,
Mm-hmm.
and Tyrese starts shooting at them.
That's right. And
Uh-huh.
Karen's like, it's okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
And tells Tyrese, like, what the governor did.
Yeah.
And so Tyrese and Sasha let Rick's group in.
Mm-hmm.
And they find they find Andrea.
Right.
They, like, find the holding cells or whatever. And they're like, we can save you. And she's like, no, you can't. And she's like,
And they're like, oh, right, we can't.
Right,
That was a dumb
right.
thing to say, wasn't it?
and she's like, Rick, give me your gun. I know how to turn
I know
off
where the safety
I know
is.
where the safety
that's like
is.
that's what
right.
he said. I think when he first met her,
Mm-hmm.
or like in the first episode where he met her, like the second episode of the series, where, and okay, I know it's a callback, but it's still dumb because Rick's gun does not have a safety.
I know that irritates you.
Yes, it does. I just don't think a lot of writers think about this stuff with revolvers, sort of like in one of the books where it's like someone attaches a silencer to their revolver,
Right,
and it's
right.
like, oh my god, okay, I don't think you quite understand how this works. Yeah, and so then they leave. She has Rick's gun.
Michonne
And-
stays in there with
That's
her.
right. Yeah. Uh-huh. And then they
And-
step out, and then they hear Andrea shoot herself in the
Mm-hmm.
head. Yeah, and that's the end of Andrea.
Yeah.
So, interestingly, supposedly, originally, Andrea was not supposed to die at this point. She was supposed to become the leader of the survivors of Woodbury, which would sort of make her the counterpart to the comic universe's Lily Call, who's like one of the governor's lieutenants and ended up killing the governor in the comics when he attacked the prison, and then became the leader of Woodbury after that.
Well, and in the comics also, Lily Call, the governor makes her shoot.
A baby. Oh, right. Yes,
Right.
shoot,
Well,
Lori and
Lori's
Judith,
still
yeah.
alive, and
Uh-huh.
Lori's carrying Judith,
Right.
and
Not
kills,
in her uterus, just
right,
to be clear.
correct,
Yeah,
in her arms.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so Lily shoots them, and they both die, and she like goes
Mm-hmm. And then
crazy
she's like, "Oh,
because
no."
she killed a baby.
Yeah, she's like, you made me kill a baby.
Right,
Yeah,
and not crazy in terms of governor.
Oh,
she
right,
just
right.
like
Uh-huh,
just
yeah.
like super super angry. Just totally turns on the governor 360 like in a second as soon as she realizes it's a baby.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the comics, Judith like Lori was alive until now, and then Judith also died now.
I do think they should. I mean, I don't know why they changed it, but they should have done something like that, because that further makes more of an impact. If the
About why
governor
they
had
hate-
been
yes.
responsible,
Yes.
I mean, obviously
For-
at that, like, he dies
for
shortly
Lori.
after, but like it would have just made the whole thing more impactful,
Right.
Because, yeah, I
It would
just
give
like
them more reason to hate him again.
yeah, and it
But-
didn't have to be Judith too if they really wanted to keep her.
Right,
Like
but
it
it
could have
could've
just
been
been Lori, you know.
yeah.
But like I feel like that would have just had more of an impact.
Yeah,
I think
it
they
really
should have
would
done
have.
that instead of it just being like, oh no,
Lori died.
Kevin Hart let the walkers into the
Right,
prison, and then
that
some
killed
random
Lori,
walker
right.
killed her.
But didn't you say that the show writer for this season deferred so much from the comic, and that's why they got rid of him, because it was like too
That's
different?
what I've read. Yes, is that which I mean, they should have hewed closer to the comic overall. I think they changed a lot of things like for no particular reason other than maybe they just wanted to do their own thing.
They wanted to stretch it out a little
but
longer.
and I thought that was interesting because when I originally watched the show when it was new, I just assumed that okay, because this is one of my big problems with the season is that almost all of it is build up to the governor attacking the prison.
Mm-hmm.
And
But we still have half a season.
At this point?
Yeah, don't we?
No. This is the season finale.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
Oh,
you're
no,
right.
no,
I
that's
was thinking
okay.
about next. Okay.
Oh, no. That's totally, like, in the story, in
Right.
the
In the
story
story
arc,
arc,
you're right,
right.
you're
Okay,
right. In the
okay.
prison story arc, we do
Okay.
have one, like, half a season left.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. And so I just assumed, originally watching it, because there's so much buildup, and they're all saying, like, we can't defend the prison, you know? Like, we can't really, like, do anything
Which
when
is
the governor
true.
attacks. Yeah, because we just don't have the resources to really defend the prison.
Mm-hmm.
But then they defend it pretty easily in this
Yes.
episode. And it's like, whoa, okay, wow, that kind of makes a lot... Because, like, they did a good job of, like, building it up.
Right.
You know, and making it seem like it was going to be a huge confrontation. More like in the comics and the books. But there's really no... I mean, yes, it does rely on the governor being stupid, you know, and, like, walking into a trap.
Right.
But still, it's like, oh, okay. And, like, okay, so they really just had to break the morale of the Woodbury militia. And then if the governor hadn't massacred them all after that, like, there might not, there probably wouldn't have been another assault.
Right.
Because they would have been too scared. And they
Right.
would have just said, no, it's not worth it. So, wow, okay. I guess everybody's pessimism was completely unwarranted. Like, I guess they were just, being too pessimistic, and they actually were able to defend the prison and everything was fine.
Right.
Which means that most of the season was kind of wasted.
That's true.
Like, if it had been a huge confrontation, I think that would have been, like, it would have worked.
It would have, yeah.
And so I just assumed, watching it originally, that they did this. I thought it must have been a budgetary thing. Like, why they had the governor fail in this initial assault, but then, like, still survive and run away. You know what I mean? And then come back later. Like, I thought, okay, this must be a budgetary thing where, like, they ran out of money for, like, a bigger
battle
finish to the
scene.
story.
Right.
And so then they were like, okay, we'll
stretch it out.
yeah, we'll have him live to fight another day.
Right. We'll dangle enough just to keep the audience, like, intrigued.
And then
we'll do it later when we have more money.
And we'll do this pretty cheap ass storyline with the virus.
In the next
like,
season.
yeah, in the prison,
it is
where it's
really
just like,
cheap, yeah.
because I was like, okay, maybe that explains why they did that.
Right.
Kind of I think it's kind of an unengaging story.
I agree.
I mean, like, the idea of, like, them having to fight a disease is interesting, but it's just kind of like, oh, they're just running around looking for medicine and killing off all the surviving Woodbury characters. That's a big pet peeve of mine. How they just, like, wipe them all out because they don't want to bother with it.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like how we've talked about before. Like, if it's not, like, a major character, they find
they just
a way
kill
to
them
kill
off
him
real
quickly.
And nobody cares. It's like, nope, human life only matters if it's, like, part of this core group, and
Right.
everybody else can go to hell. Nobody really cares.
So there was an alternative ending.
Oh yeah, so so apparently that was not the case, at least not entirely, about the budget. Because that's just because I was like, okay, those must be where, like, they're delaying the final battle with the tank, where he actually destroys the prison.
Right.
Because they didn't have enough money left. And so they were, like, trying to, like, that's the reason why it's this weird, awkward narrative thing where he, like, loses his army. But then later, like, he finds a different army and comes back again, like, later on. Because that's kind of awkward in terms of how the story plays out. Like, it would have been much better if it was just the Woodbury army that destroyed the prison and all of this was in one season. Like, if this had just all been season 3, it would have worked a lot better, I think. But then I was reading, it was supposedly the showrunner, because he was deviating so much, like, the people in charge and the original comic creator thought that they were getting too far ahead and like changing too many things, and so it would make it harder to adapt the show from the comics going forward.
Okay.
Because like the comics weren't that far ahead at that point.
Right.
And so then that's part of why they fired him. Okay. So like maybe so it might not have been a budget. Like they might have just been like, oh, we have to like hit the brakes on the story.
Right.
And like
we gotta
add some filler
here.
And we gotta
right.
like, we gotta like kind of
it's gotta stay right here for half the season.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting, and because I really assumed it was a budgetary thing, but it might have been. I think it was probably a good idea to fire that guy, because they did change a lot of things for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have worked better. I think the actor who plays the governor is really good.
He's really good.
Yeah, but I think if he had been given better material, like if he had played more like the governor from the comics and the novels, I think that would have been better.
Yeah.
Like I think that would have been really cool if he played the character more like that. But.
So in this alternative ending, like Andrea wasn't supposed to die. She's supposed to become the leader of Woodbury. Mm-hmm. She wasn't actually supposed to get herself out of the chair either, but Sasha and Tyrese were supposed to find her and kill Milton and rescue Andrea.
Yeah.
So that she could become the leader.
Yeah.
And it's possible, this is kind of speculation, nothing concrete, nothing solid, but it's possible that she was killed because the writer, the showrunner, didn't like her.
Yeah, supposedly. I mean, that's, who knows how accurate that is, but that's interesting. I mean, because he didn't like the actress.
Right.
And so he was like,
we're gonna kill her.
I'll make you unlikable, Andrea, and then kill you off. Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay. Which is weird because she's so important in the comics. Mm-hmm. And so then they kind of like, they're like, okay, we'll use Carol to like sort of like, to like become this equivalent character going forward.
Because at this point in the comics, Carol has killed herself.
Right.
Because she wanted a 3-way with Rick and Lori said no, and Carol...
She wanted to be like part of like a polygamous family. Yeah, with them.
And they said no, and so Carol killed herself.
Right.
So in the comics, at this point, Carol no longer exists, and the character that is Carol in the show going forward is what Andrea was in the comics. So they're like swapping characters out too.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
I do really like Carol becomes a pretty big, badass, which I love. But like that's interesting that was supposed to be Andrea.
And I suppose the actress who plays Carol is probably better than you know what I mean? So maybe that was for the best in some ways. Like she is probably a better actress than the one who played Andrea. Yeah. So this is an interesting... Oh, and so then at the end of the episode, they get everybody from Woodbury who's still alive and drag them back to the prison.
Right, get them in a bus and take them back to the prison with them.
Which is weird. I don't buy that. I don't buy that everyone would agree to that. I guess
it's because they're like, oh, the governor's so bad.
Right.
Like, we thought all these bad things about you, but it was really him, so we should trust you.
But I don't know. I mean, and you're
logic.
Right. You're right. I mean, you're totally right that that's what they're, it just seems weird because it's like, okay, so so you want us, Rick, to leave this comfortable, safe, normal town that we've been living in comfortably and safely this entire time.
To go to this
weird
prison.
Crappy prison
that just got attacked and part of it blown up.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
With you, who we don't really know it. Like, I mean, sure, like, okay, maybe you're not what the governor said you were, but we also don't really know. Right. We don't have any particular reason to trust him.
That's a very good point.
Thank you. Like, I mean, weren't you just insane recently? Like, weren't you hallucinating?
Like yelling really,
that's what Tyrese told us, is that you were, like, and hallucinating and threatening him. And, anyway, yeah.
So, overall, this, like, ends the season, and it's a decent episode, but there's a lot of flaws.
And it just... I think they could have done it a lot better. They could have handled the story better, and... Considering that, I mean, I can talk about that when we get to the next story, but okay. They clearly didn't want to deal with any of these Woodbury survivors. So they really should have just been like, oh yeah, they're staying in the town, and we check up on them, but they're like,
they can do their own thing.
they should have just been like, sure, they, most of them, like some of them came with us, most of them stayed in the town, something like that. I think that would have been better because they clearly did not want to have to think about them at all based on what happens after this, and so they shouldn't have tried. They shouldn't have moved everybody into the prison. That doesn't make any sense. That's my position on that. End of season 3.